I'm excited about is when Kurt presented this to the council, he said this was going to be on a fast track. And if you listen to Kurt, it obviously is.
Just a real quick thought. Listen, I was at a planning sort of focused seminar last week. Bob Flanagan in the audience was there. You know, one of the main points that they talked about, some of the speakers talked about, is if you're a community and you have an anchor institution, right, and that anchor institution is looking to grow, looking to expand, looking to redevelop, you help them. And that's what we're looking to do here. You know, Bristol Hospital, as the first in on this site, is so important.
Because you're investing in Bristol. And obviously, you know, we've got a tight commitment between, you know, Bristol residents and everything like that, but it does take a spark, and I appreciate that.
We're thrilled to do it. We are, as I've said before, we're inseparably tied to the economic viability of this community. Community hospitals everywhere have the same thing. To the extent that the community evolves and develops, the hospital too evolves and develops. The community doesn't evolve and develop, the hospital withers over time. So we're really pleased, very proud to be able to do this. We're also happy that the governor's proposed budget maintains the cuts. Well, we're not happy to maintain the cuts, but it's not more severe than what we thought. That's always been a concern for us. So we're hopeful that the city, everyone gets through this budget process without.
Let's put the RFP on hold for a minute. And I want to talk about why we include the plan of conservation and development in your packet, right? So, you know, I think the idea here is that by working with the hospital, by no means does this mean that the city is veering in any way from this vision of downtown that we've all sort of agreed to over the last several years. The plan of conservation and development really we're going to be looking at that. This is a guiding document for us, right? So, you know, obviously some of the POCD's main points about downtown are looking to create a walkable downtown, creating a downtown that works well together efficiently, creating a downtown that, to quote our planner, it weaves, you know, we have to weave the Depot Square property back into the downtown area. That's still the case here, and that should be, you know, that can be a guiding document for this committee as we move forward. So that was the reason why we included that document. The zoning regulations is sort of similar. We have to remember that downtown is governed by zoning regs that help dictate the kind of buildings we're going to see, the kind of construction that we're going to see downtown. And the zoning regs to me also represent the land use office and your boards, right? The Planning Commission, the Zoning Commission. We can't forget that we have those folks backing us up here, right? And they're going to help guide construction downtown and make sure that it's what this community is looking for. We want to give the community what it's looking for while working with Bristol Hospital, you know, and others. So that's why we included those docs to sort of not forget that they should guide us.
We've done a couple things. We've met already with DOT. We had a whole team go up to DOT, met with the commissioner and his whole staff about possibly incorporating a bus stop into our parking garage to try to get some state money to pay for that. We've also, when I was in Washington, I met with our state's U.S. senators, and they're looking at a couple federal grants that we may or may not qualify for to get some money from them as well. So we're exploring every avenue.
And that goes back to the POCD too. I mean, the POCD was very quick to point out that as a municipality, it's a wise investment, right, to look at investing in downtown, investing in your infrastructure, your sidewalks, your parking structures, et cetera, to sort of to join with the private sector in really giving the community what it would like.
But again, that can't be done until we know what the hospital's building. It's all got to be all together and coordinated, and it will be. So we have, as a team, done a lot of work in a short amount of time, and we're all excited.
So team, right? That's I want to emphasize that point because you all are serve as the overseers and sort of the policymakers, if you will, of the site. When the preferred developer was on the site, they went out and they programmed the site, meaning that they decided where, you know, a roadway could go. They decided where buildings can go, access points, utilities, etc.
Is any of that reusable?
Possibly. But the idea is now that's our responsibility, right? But that's not a bad thing. This is sort of a specialized urban planning, site planning issue. And it's a big endeavor. One of the first things that I came up with is the possibility of going out to bid to hire a consultant to take
The
care of some
idea
of this.
behind this kind of proposal is to bring a consultant on board who can synthesize the city's goals for the downtown and this area of the downtown, and to make sure that what the city is trying to accomplish in the downtown and on the site is integrated with what the private development community that may translate to a developer who comes in and says, I want to be able to provide some housing for people who work in this location because they don't want, it'll be more convenient, they won't have to drive, park construction. You're going to need walkability, you're going to need the things that make successful downtowns successful. I think the purpose of this RFP is to ensure that when private development takes place, it takes place in a larger context that recognizes private development, but also has private development recognize that there are public goals that this downtown redevelopment project is trying to meet. So you're not going to get simply a pretty picture. You're going to get some ideas and some a mission statement and some recommendations that'll come out of this that everybody's going to have to kind of keep their eye on as private development.
In terms of the negotiations that we were part of, it's clear that there's going to be some controversy and some knocking of heads about certain things that they're going to probably want as a premier developer, first guy on the block, okay, versus what's good for our master plan.
That's part of the challenge is getting the development community to understand that if they're going to be downtown, that if it's a place they want to be, in addition to zoning regulations, there are certain things they need to be able to commit to that, again, advance the city's goals for revitalizing the downtown.
This project is that we're really trying to strike a balance between planning and economic development, right? Because theoretically and historically, maybe they could be looked at as opposing missions, but they're not in reality. And one good example of that is that the idea is to bring on a consultant to help us work through some of these issues, right, and to create this plan, but we're not going to stop development during that time. I'm just not comfortable with that. So what we're going to charge the consultant with is, of course, giving us what we're looking for, this plan, right? But we're going to ask that the consultant remain flexible on that plan, that as we bring in potential end users, that they can, A, help us out with that project, right? Because this consultant is going to be, they're going to have urban planners at their disposal, engineering folks, that will be able to help us as we work with potential end users, but at the same time, maybe those end users will inform the final plan, the layout, etc. So we're going to be selling while the plan's occurring, and maybe that's a good thing.
And through the chair, the key is that finding firms that have done this before that can bring in best practices. Right? This isn't the only place that's ever been developed before, so best practices can be key. How do you get a mixture of office, retail, social, that type of thing? And that's what I hope
We're going to keep the momentum going, and let's get the motion on the table.
I'll read the motion. To authorize the issuance of a request for proposals on behalf of Bristol Development Authority for the engagement of consultant services toward redevelopment of the property known as Depot Square.
Second.
Motion made, seconded, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes.